Check. 1, 2, 3.
The D.
Brief.
This is the D Brief.
Your guide to Detroit.
Your guide to Detroit's arts
and entertainment scene.
This is the D
Brief.
Hello and welcome to the debrief for the week of August 13th, 2018. I am your co-host. My name is Seth Rassel.
And I am Becky Scarcello.
I love these dramatic pauses. I'm, wait for it, Jag.
Hey, Jag, Becky, how you guys doing? Look, lots of great guests on today's show. We have Greg Rassel, who is the president of the Woodward Dream Cruise. Big event coming up.
One of the biggest events of the year in Metro Detroit.
Definitely.
So you had an opportunity to sit down and talk to him all about it. We'll hear that conversation.
Yeah, a little bit of the history and the picture for those who of us who been going for years and those who've never been.
Also, we have Bailey Sisoy Isgro, our favorite Detroit historian. She runs Detroit history tours. She's going to talk to us. She also has a brand new book called Rosie, a Detroit Her Story. It's a children's book that she worked with an illustrator on and they put together, and it's fascinating.
Looks beautiful.
Yeah, we'll find out all about that. Plus, on Thursday, coming up in a couple days, we have our in-depth interview with Kweku Onsebonsu of Black Metro Eats. He's going to talk about Detroit Black Restaurant Week, which is coming up August 20th through the 26th. And, of course, we've always got your concerts, comedy, plays, food, drink, and more. Stick around.
The D Brief.
Food and drink.
Becky, let's kick it off with food and drink today, shall we?
Cheers. There may be a few ways to mix rap and beer. I don't know if you've been to an event like this, but I find it pretty interesting.
Any music is better with beer.
Exactly. So if you want to find out who has the freshest beats and the tastiest beers, go to the first Rap and Tap event at One-Eyed Betty's in Ferndale. It's happening this Thursday, August 16th. There's going to be 6 breweries there.
Okay.
And one will be chosen as brewing the best beer of summer. So each of the 6 breweries will bring their entry beer, and we'll have a chance to go up to the mic and rap about why it's the best.
So
wow.
This is where I'm confused. Are they going to judge them on the quality of the beer or the quality of the rap or a combination thereof?
It's the 1-2 punch. So flights of all 6 beers will be available for a guest to purchase, and then the tasters get to judge and vote on the winner.
Like, I love Griffin Claw. I know Griffin Claw is going to be there. I love their beer. But if they get up there and just bomb on the stage,
right.
Vomit all over mom's spaghetti, it's like, then what?
You got to factor that in. So I think it's the combo package.
This is a cool event. I would
think
totally
it's
go
awesome.
to see this.
Yeah.
When I start drinking, I start rapping anyway. So you'd be amazed at all the
I don't know
songs I know all the ways
I'm
to.
sure, yeah.
Yeah. You get a little Sir Mix-a-Lot going on.
Absolutely. Oh my God, Becky.
Look at her butt.
Yes.
All right. Angelina's Bistro. So it closed. It was downtown for 10 years, but closed last winter. Italian restaurant. The owner, Tom Agosta, is reinventing, relocating his talents. He's now going to partner with Motor City Brewing Works. He's going to manage the menu, take care of the food at the brewery's new tap house, which is on the Avenue of Fashion there in Livernois.
I was just there for the first time like 2-3 weeks ago. We went for a bike ride down there because I had never been to that neighborhood.
Okay, sure.
And it was a cool neighborhood to just kind of
it's a nice
explore.
mix.
And yeah, there's a lot going on there.
Nice mix of stuff and a lot of new stuff coming. So we'll see what happens with it. It was in a building that was going to include the gourmet slider restaurant called Slide with a Y, but something fell apart with that. They're going to move to Midtown, so it's a whole big shuffle, but we'll look forward to Motor City Brewing going in there with some Italian food, it sounds like.
Excellent.
So what do you guys think has been missing cuisine-wise in Detroit? I know we got all kinds of new restaurants, but there's still some stuff missing.
You know, it's tough because there's so much, but I don't think that we have the best Chinese food here. I think it's different in every region of the country, and I'm an adopted Detroiter. I love Detroit, but I grew up in New England, and whenever I go home to visit family in New England, I go get Chinese food because I think it's what I grew up with. I'm just used to the style in New England, and that's what I like better.
I would kind of agree with you, though. I love Peterborough, which is newer, but I have not settled on the best Chinese either.
Yeah, Japanese. You know, I used to live over by Noble Fish in Clawson.
Oh, it's
and,
great.
You know,
Yeah, a lot of great
there.
sushi.
But yeah, no, I haven't found a great Chinese place. I'm still missing Fist of Curry, which was over there in.
You went there
liked
once
that.
and love it first sight.
You know what? I had low expectations, and it was great, and I was like, oh my God, this is going to be a thing, and I'm just bummed they pulled the plug so fast.
Quick. Yeah, it seemed a little premature, but well, so neither of you mentioned Trinidadian food.
Oh, well, that was next on my list.
That was literally on the tip of my tongue.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So you'll get to satisfy your craving. There's a new restaurant called Norma G's. It's opening this week. The owner's chef, his name is Lester Gouveia. He was born in Trinidad, raised in Brooklyn, I believe, but he carries with him his mom's cooking. Her name's Norma. So he named it after his mom, and he's bringing his unique variety of Caribbean cuisine to Jefferson Chalmers neighborhood, which I think is a great location. And he's saying that it's Caribbean food, which we do have some of, but Trinidadian is different interpretations, a little bit different flavors.
One of my wife's best friends, who we actually saw this weekend, she lives out of state, but she's from Trinidad.
Oh,
so
really?
she's gonna be my next call
She'll
tomorrow.
test,
She's gonna have to come visit us and give us
See
her
what she
expert opinion.
thinks.
Yeah.
Yeah. So things like curried goat, jerk chicken, chicken pilau, codfish balls, things that you might recognize if you've been to a Caribbean restaurant. I guess we'll have a little bit different seasoning, a little different preparation. So he calls it his simple food, just comfort food, stuff he grew up with. It's going to be in a colorful, casual sit-down eatery. And I think it's important to mention that he chose this neighborhood specifically, feeling that it'll have a little bit more of an impact, a little bit more of a neighborhood feel than maybe Midtown or downtown. And it was partly financed with a Motor City Match Grant. I know we talk a lot about, where does this money go with these different match programs? And here's an example of somebody, just an entrepreneur starting his own thing.
Well, and not for nothing, we have seen restaurants move in and change neighborhoods. I mean, Slows is credited for changing Corktown,
Absolutely.
and bringing that back. So that can happen.
Yeah, and Jefferson Chalmers, I don't know if you're familiar with it. There's a business called Jefferson East Inc., and they help a lot of businesses incubate there, and it really borders Grosse Pointe Park, and it's in a great sort of transitional spot and really kind of up and coming. So cool. We'll look for that.
In just a few, Detroit is going to be well represented at the Toronto Film Festival. We'll fill you in on all the details.
The D.
Brave.
All right, Jag, I know you got an opportunity to sit down with the president of the Woodward Dream Cruise. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Greg Rassel, his day job, he's the director of public works for the city of Royal Oak, but he is also the president of the Woodward Dream Cruise. They've got a whole team of all the communities along the Dream Cruise that all work together. He's the president of it, and we had to ask him about it because it's such an amazing event. Obviously, hundreds of thousands of people. I think at their peak they had 1 million people come out for it. 16-mile stretch of Woodward for anybody who's new to town, from Ferndale all the way up to Pontiac. It is the largest free outdoor car show in the U.S. And I asked him kind of about the appeal of it to so many people.
This is really a living history. We have a lot of static museums in the automotive industry around here where you can go in and see the car. But this weekend, you get to see these cars moving and revving their engines and doing that kind of stuff, which you don't necessarily get to see if you go to a museum or static display car show.
So I got married last July 22nd, so about a month or so before the Dream Cruise. And a lot of my groomsmen are car guys. I'm a little bit of a car guy, but many of my groomsmen that came around town are huge
you a car guy? I'm not a...
I'm not a car guy,
Yeah, well,
nor am I a car girl.
Right, you don't sit on the hood and...
No, I enjoy
Tawny Katane.
I enjoy it in small amounts, but I don't know models or anything.
No,
like
I don't
that.
know models. I like the seeing the cars go up and down Woodward. But so I brought my guy friends and girlfriends too that are car people. I said, look, it's a random Friday night in July. It's not Dream Cruise weekend, but let's just take a walk like half a mile down Woodward.
It's already happened,
and
yeah.
their jaws were just on the road. Oh, that's a Chevy, blah blah blah. That's a Ford, blah blah. That's an old Dodge. I've never seen one of those. I've only seen pictures of that. Oh my God, they were just in awe, and it was so
That's
cool
cool.
because I was showing off Detroit to my friends that were in town for the wedding that hadn't been here. This is one of the coolest things about the city.
See, to me, when I first moved here, I didn't know that cruising was still a thing. I mean, to me, I think of American Graffiti.
from the 60s.
Right, which is a film that you've never seen. It's
Yeah,
by
right.
by a guy named Steven Spielberg. He'll be big one day.
I've heard
Yeah.
his name
He's
in
done a few
passing a couple
things.
times. Yeah.
Seriously, as a radio guy, Wolfman Jack plays such a big role in this movie that this is a movie that you actually need to go see.
Yeah,
I will
you should,
I will
yeah.
add it to my lengthy scroll of
Oh my
movies you've
gosh.
told me I have to see.
But I didn't know it was a thing till I got here. I didn't.
Yeah, and I think it's one of those things us native Detroiters just almost take for granted. Like, of course, there's cool cars everywhere all the time.
So you mentioned the 60s and kind of when this cruising thing started. Greg got to tell me about why Woodward Avenue was selected for the Dream Cruise.
The reason Woodward was selected for the Dream Cruise is back in the 50s, There was, I think, 23 drive-ins and a 16-mile stretch along the highway, and people from Detroit came out here, and the suburbs weren't here then in 1950s. This was really the sticks. Drive-ins went away and became more developed, but people still migrate here because this is where they came in their classic car. Their now classic car to cruise up and down the muscle cars and drag race and that kind of thing.
I've learned to just totally embrace this. Like, even though I'm not a car person by nature, it's so fun to see the variety of cars. And one year when my boys were much younger and they were very into, just playing with their small cars, and they loved like emergency vehicles, any kind of
Ambulance, fire truck, police car, yeah.
So we happened to snag a great booth there at Nello's, which is a diner at Lincoln and Woodward, 10.5 mile in Woodward.
Okay, yep.
Close to where we live. So we walked up there, snagged this great booth, and just had this roving view. And at one point, the whole parade of fire trucks and police cars from really early models to current day came on by. Like, I couldn't have planned it better. I could not have paid, and they're like, oh my gosh. Look
I must have been so rewarding for you as a mom to see the looks on your kids' faces.
They were just riveted for, that whole half hour.
I will say that I'm not a car guy, but I do like seeing the evolution of vehicles
That's
like that.
exactly
When you see
how
them.
it was,
Like when you go to the Henry Ford Museum and they have all the police,
How
or even all the
things have changed.
presidential cars.
presidential cars
Yeah.
over the years. Yeah, I love watching that and seeing all those details.
All right, so it's not an easy thing to pull off an event of this magnitude.
What a logistical nightmare.
All these towns, all these, if you buy a Woodward Dream Cruise T-shirt or merchandise, a lot of that goes toward the extra police and the overtime. And so I asked Greg about the effort to put all this together.
The communities work together, and that is a challenge to get 9 communities to agree on everything, like a day, and set rules and have a fun, safe, happy family event kind of thing, because that's what's amazing to me. It's like a huge block party. A lot of people come back, go to the same area every year for the Dream Cruise, and they meet up with people that they met 5 years ago to Dream Cruise, and they exchange stories about what they've done with their car, whether they've just continued to spend 24 years renovating the same car, adding one piece at a time or fixing it one piece at a time, or they may have sold it and moved on to something, a nicer version, or their next project.
Getting 9 communities to agree on transportation. That's something that I think we need a little more of.
No kidding. Yes.
Yeah, obviously this is
Regionalism, anyone?
Yeah, not L. Brooks Patterson putting
He's
the
not
Dream
on
Cruise
board.
together.
No, he is not on board.
Way too much collaboration for him to be involved.
I will say this: I bought the merchandise, and I bought it actually for my dad. My dad is a car guy.
Okay, so
he
must be so disappointed.
He is really disappointed in me.
That came out a lot harsher than I meant it.
I'm not gonna. He's rebuilding a Jensen Healy in his garage, which is like a 3-decade project, I think, at this point.
Oh, hey.
But he's into this. I remember him actually taking me to a race course and letting me drive around and figuring out how to do that when I was a young kid. But
Cool. Didn't stick.
Does your dad
didn't
like
stick.
sports?
He does now that he's retired. He did not care when we were growing up.
But
Now
now
all of a
he's more
sudden he
time.
watches football and it's weird. You go home and like, what are you doing? I'm watching football. Oh, okay.
Okay.
I don't know what happened.
I know you're not a sports guy. I was wondering if you had that
No,
difference too or not.
it must be low testosterone or something. All the testosterone's gone to another place.
There's supplements for that, Seth.
Yeah.
So I asked Greg about, going and sort of painting the picture of what it's like at this event. Becky, you talked about being there with your kids, and I've been there walking around. And Seth, I know you've been, right, to the Dream Cruise?
Yeah, I've been.
So I asked him, if he has any advice for people who either veterans or rookies go or just new to town going for the first time.
We joke and we're look, the Dream Cruise starts at Memorial Day and ends, the third Saturday in August, sort of like a crescendo, because people do enjoy getting out with their cars. And earlier in the week, you see more vehicles on the road. One complaint is there's a lot of traffic on Saturday. I encourage people to just pick a spot, walk a half mile up and down, and view the cars, especially if you don't have a classic car on Saturday. If you got a classic car, get it out there and take it. If you don't have a classic car, get on the side of the road, watch the traffic, or wander through some of the parking lots and view the cars and talk to some of the people about their cars is the best way to do it.
Really, you can just grab like a folding chair or one of those like portable beach chairs in the bag, and you just camp out in front of any business on Woodward on Saturday and walk around. And then even if you're not a car person, you'll see, oh, what is that you got over there? Oh, it's a 1973 Ford Fairlane or whatever it is. Oh, okay. And then even if you're not a car guy, you can appreciate appreciate
The
passion, the history of it, the American cars that have been great over the years. So if you want to go, Woodward Dream Cruise all day Saturday, goes from Ferndale up to Pontiac. And I want to add this quickly because this just came out a couple days ago. If you've seen the movie Bullet, or you're familiar with the movie Bullet.
Yeah, Steve McQueen.
Yep. The original 1968 Mustang GT Fastback. This is the car that introduced the world to the Mustang. The original car itself will be on display at Cruise and Muir along Woodward in Royal Oak Thursday through Saturday this week. If you want to see a real iconic piece of automotive history, go check that out this week.
That's pretty amazing to see something like that outside of a museum.
Last year they had in downtown Birmingham, it was like one of the first Chevy, it might have been the first Camaro that came off the assembly line. It was in a glass case where it's worth like $1 million.
That's what I wondered. Are they going to protect this?
I don't know how well it's going to be protected, but I plan on checking it out on Thursday.
Okay.
In just a few, Jag went out drinking with zoo animals. We'll tell you all about it.
Debrief.
Want more? Text the word Detroit to the number 444-999.
Becky, what's going on around town?
All right, this weekend, Michigan Comic-Con's at
Woo!
Kobo.
My nerds in the house.
He doesn't like cars or sports, but man, does he love
all
Comic-Con.
over the comics.
I've actually never been to a Comic-Con, but I would totally go because I'm a fan of all that
Well,
sci-fi
here's your
stuff.
chance. Friday to Sunday. Check it out.
My crush is going to be there.
Who's
Who's
that?
that?
Jewel State.
Oh, you've mentioned her before.
Yes.
The
Who
Firefly.
played-
Firefly.
Yes, Kylie from Firefly.
Never seen it.
Oh my god! You know, this
Look
was,
at the hearts coming out
Come
of
on,
his
this was
eyes.
Joss Whedon. This is the guy who created Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the guy who did the first two Avengers film, and he did.
Sorry, the what films?
Oh my gosh. Well, guess what? A guy's going to be there too who's kind of like my secret crush.
Who's that?
The guy who played Darth Maul.
Oh yeah, you guys would be good together. I think.
Ray Park.
I'm just trying to picture you standing next to him, and I just can't see it in my mind's eye.
So Ray Park will be there. John Rhys Davies from Lord of the Rings.
You know who? He was also in the Indiana Jones films. He played Saul.
Oh, okay.
So yeah,
Gotcha.
And you can't tell because he's small in the Lord of the Rings films, but he's not. He's a
It's a trick of
he's
the
a big guy.
film. Okay. I didn't know this story, but Nichelle Nichols from Star Trek. I never watched Star Trek, but I know it's
Really?
weird. I know it's weird. But
Me either.
see,
Well, that I expect.
okay.
I have low
You
expectations
expected
of you.
better of me,
Yes.
but so her role at the time in the 1960s when she was on the TV show was really groundbreaking. She was
Yeah.
one of the first African American females not portrayed as a servant.
Well, that
basically.
was the thing about
Yeah.
Star Trek was this
futuristic in all ways.
futuristic, especially in the way that it portrayed different races because you
Yeah.
had Sulu and you
I
had
did
all this.
know that. Yeah, yeah.
and the first interracial kiss ever on television was on Star Trek.
Trek.
Really?
Yes, it was. Now, what was weird about it is that I think it was, I forget what the exact episode was, but it was Nichelle Nichols and James T. Kirk,
Okay, yeah.
William Shatner. But I think that they were like forced to kiss by aliens or something. I forget what
it
it was. I
wasn't-
don't think it was
it
like a
wasn't
real
romance?
Well, yeah, because those two never really got
Nah.
together on the
Okay.
show. But
All
yeah,
right.
that was the first interracial kiss.
So
I love me
super,
some William
super
Shatner.
cool. I would love to meet a woman like that. And Leah Thompson will be there for the Back to the Future mom.
Yep.
So also there'll be, of course, like the collectibles, the toys, the comic books, art, meet and greet with industry pros. And what I found interesting is that to get a photo or an autograph with any of these celebrities that are going to be there, and there's a whole lot more than even I mentioned, is $40 a pop.
That does seem a little steep. I mean, I would expect you'd have to pay something, but that seems...
$40 for a picture or a autograph
For autograph?
for any
Do people
celebrity.
do autographs anymore? Because I think I had like a little autograph book when I was a kid, but
It seems like a throwback thing.
yeah, but now with phones and everything, it's like
want the selfie.
You want the selfie so you can post it on social media and send it to your
Yeah.
friends.
Yeah.
You want
That
the
is a little
picture
more
more than the
mileage,
autograph.
yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think they charge for a selfie?
Well, Becky said
Well,
photos.
yeah.
Yeah, so they're charging for
I
photos
think each will be sort of at a station.
or an autograph.
Yeah, $40.
I definitely
per
want
photo.
the selfie more than the
Well, and this
Yeah.
this goes back to both of us working in radio, Seth, is, I was spoiled. There were 3 artists that were on my bucket list to meet, and I was lucky enough to meet all 3 of them.
Nice.
For different reasons, which I will spare you. But Steven
Yeah.
Tyler, Carrie Underwood, and Bret Michaels. I met all 3 of them.
Mm-hmm.
And you get to do these backstage meet and greets, and sometimes they'll let you take it with your phone if you're with the radio station. Other times it's one photographer for the record label. They give you a card. You have to go get the link later
yes.
and all that. And it's a really... so I'm used to not having to pay for it, but I don't think I can't think of a celebrity I'd pay
I will say this: $40 for Jewel State is
You
a little
do?
cheap. Is a little steep. I mean, it's
a
a
little
little steep.
Cheap,
Yeah.
steep? Okay,
Cheap,
steep.
Yes. No,
So-
it's a little much.
Anyway, but I think that'll be a good time at Kobo this weekend. So Fash Bash is this Thursday, August 16th at the DIA, the Detroit Institute of Arts. It's there in the Great Hall. The Founders Junior Council, which is one of the groups within the DIA's leadership, puts this on every year, many, many years now, as a fundraiser for the DIA. The centerpiece of the event is a Neiman Marcus Art of Fashion runway show. So it's a see and be seen. Everybody's dressed to the nines, plus you see all this high-end fashion. I went years ago in the 90s. RuPaul was actually the host.
Big celebrity at the time.
Yeah, so that was fun. So that's a great event. Erebus in Pontiac, the big, scary, crazy haunted house.
I love this.
I have never been. I don't know if it's something I would do. That it
not
seems
for
a li-
me.
Really? You don't do
Oh, it
haunted
is
houses?
not for me. I can get scared for free.
I can do like a mild haunted house, but this thing is intense. This
I
is
like-
like world renowned.
I like creepy things and spooky things, but I don't want people touching me, running after me, screaming at me. Ugh.
So here's the thing. Erebus was actually the first interview we did for the podcast. If you go back to our very first episode.
Oh, really?
I remember that. It was
Yeah,
when I
we-
was helping you produce the show. Yeah.
We interviewed one of the guys behind Erebus, and then I went with my girlfand and loved it.
Really? Okay.
I'm into haunted houses, and this is a good one.
It's the best.
Buried
It's the
alive,
best.
like in a ball
Yes.
pit or something. How
Yeah,
does
so,
that work?
So what happens is you step in, and it's like this small little closet. You're scrunched in there with
Eek.
everybody, and then the door closes, and all these balls fill in and just drop in from the ceiling, and it fills you up.
Oh, no.
no,
Just stop.
no.
And
Check,
Yeah.
please.
People wait in line and pay big money for this. So you must be thinking, why the heck am I talking about Halloween right now? But the reason is they're hosting an open casting call this week, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So they're looking to hire 250 people.
If you want to get paid to like sneak up behind Becky and grab her arm and terrify her, this is the way to do
This is the
it.
way. So if you're an aspiring actor, actress, or just want to scare people for money,
Oh, I would totally do this. This is a cool job.
seriously.
How does that go on your resume? Went to Pontiac and scared the bleep out of people every
yeah.
Halloween.
Yes.
Yeah, so people are coming through. They're chosen for their scary potential, and then they get to go to school for it. So it's called the Erebus Boo School. So
The
they're
Boo School.
The Boo School. So then they be sent there to hone their craft.
There's a missed opportunity there. Right? It should have been called Boo Camp. Get it?
Instead of boot camp.
Yeah, there you
boot
go.
camp.
Oh, see.
If you have kind of a scary look, or as they used to tell us, a face for radio, does that put you at an advantage if you're just not the best looking person in the world?
I bet it does. So the Toronto Film Festival runs September 6th through 16th, and this year has quite a few Detroit and Michigan connections. I'll just highlight a couple. A couple films that will make their world premiere at this festival is Michael Moore's Donald Trump documentary, Fahrenheit 11/9.
That was the day Trump was elected,
Yeah,
11/9, so play
named
on
for
9/11.
that.
Okay,
exactly.
In fact,
Exactly.
he actually does that. I saw the trailer because the trailer just dropped. And
Yes.
at the end of it, and it's a
yeah. Dark.
it's a dark trailer. And at the end of it, it says Fahrenheit 9/11, and then
Switches it.
slowly.
Yeah,
and you see that.
it's pretty clever. So we'll put the trailer up on our website. The Detroit set film White Boy Rick, starring Matthew McConaughey, is also premiering there. And a film called Flash of Genius stars Greg Kinnear as the real-life Richard Cairns. It's a Wayne State and University of Detroit grad. He successfully sued Ford Motor Company for $30 million for stealing his idea for the windshield wiper that goes intermittently.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And $30 million back then was a lot of money.
Yeah, so I didn't know that story, so there was a film about it.
In just a few minutes, our former co-host, Mr. Michael Jeter, the big comedian who was on the Kevin Hart
Making waves.
show last summer.
Comedy Central, yeah.
He is headlining. We'll tell you all about it.
This is the Debrief.
About last week.
All right, guys, let's take a few moments to get into what we did last week. Becky, let's start with you.
She's everywhere. Where did she go this week?
You sure you want to start with me?
Let's just start with where you didn't go.
Short list.
Yeah, that'd be shorter. No, I checked out FOMO's. So we've talked about this, the Como's on 9 Mile and Woodward there.
Right, in Ferndale.
Yeah, so Peas and Carrots Hospitality has bought the place. They're going to keep the name, which is somewhat controversial. But they've, I think, done this brilliant marketing. So they have, just on the weekends this summer, really just this month through Labor Day weekend, they're open for FOMOs, which of course means fear of missing out. They've turned it into this sandy beach party. just on the patio. And it's super fun. So we popped in there. We also wanted to see Peter Croce, so a friend of ours, former guest,
friend of the pod
on the show. So he was DJing. He picked the perfect tunes, and also Pontchartrain was there, another DJ, and they just had the summer vibes going. The weather was perfect. It's all open air. There's sand. They have a baby pool. They have chaise lounges. They have mannequins dressed in swimwear. They have like inflatable parrots and beach balls, and it feels like you're just on vacation.
What is it with beaches and no water here? Like, you've got campus marshes.
I know, it's kind of a thing.
And now you've got FOMOs. It's kind
They
of
had
like
the baby pool, but you guys, literally adults, were there playing in the sand, like building sand castles.
That's kind of cool.
And they had a couple like fun tropical drinks, and everyone was really nice. And they had Jenga and all these things you could do.
Sure.
And it was funny because I was talking to Peter in between his sets, and he's like, "This is what I imagined fraternity parties would be like before I went to college."
It's like you see in the movies.
They were a disappointment
They're
in
like,
real life.
Well, they're kind of grittier and
Right,
stickier.
I understand.
I don't think I was ever at a frat party prior to 2:30 a.m.
Yeah, so this was like the fun movie type of frat party, but no, just super great. And I also just have to give a quick shout out. The night before, we went to Tom's Oyster Bar in downtown Royal Oak. Now, I know on this podcast, we often are talking about the newest. What's the great new restaurant?
Right.
Tom's Oyster Bar has been there forever, and I'm telling you, we hadn't been a while. They killed it. We had the best waiter. He was super fun. We all loved our food. We all had seafood. We had good drinks. I just wanted to give them a shout out. Like, they have been killing it for years, and it's still really great. We enjoyed it very much.
All right, Jag, what about you?
I went out this weekend.
Well,
I actually got out of the house.
congratulations. Yes.
You did?
Yeah, so I went to the...
You got permission?
No, I brought my wife with me.
Oh, even
we
better.
went to the Savor Food and
It
Wine
cost you.
Savor Food and Wine Festival at the Detroit Zoo. Now, my wife actually worked at the zoo when she was in grad school, and so we're very familiar with the zoo. And we go to all their events. We go to the Wild Wine, Wild Wine, Polar Beers, the other beer thing, Zoo Brew. Thank you. We've gone to all of those.
That's a lot of puns.
It is,
know.
but it's
But
the
they're
zoo.
so
It's
fun. We
Their
go to all
slogan
of
is
them,
Vitamin
too.
Z. Like, they're just fun like that. So the difference between this one and the other ones is this was actually put on by Our Detroit.
Sure.
Our Detroit had rented out the zoo for this event.
That can't
And-
be cheap.
No, definitely not. I don't know the number, but I'm sure it's quite high.
Yeah.
So they actually closed the zoo at 3 p.m. to start setting up for this event, which ran Friday from 6 to 10. And what was cool about it was a lot of the drinking events at the zoo, there's not a lot of food, so you get to, and you're like, oh.
Or you have to purchase the food separate.
Right.
Yeah.
This event, they were just kind of handing out samples of different foods as you would go. And, of course, Bee Nectar was there with cider and mead.
I love Bee Nectar.
A bunch
That's my meadery, man.
A bunch of wines, a bunch of beers, like all these local places. But there were also some food, some up-and-coming food vendors, some existing food vendors.
Was it like food truck people or different restaurants?
It was a little bit of restaurants. There weren't any specific food trucks.
Okay.
But there were all sorts of like little bite-sized samples. There were cheeses. There were just small plates. There were the big green egg, the grill
the
thing.
smoker,
Yeah,
yeah.
the smoker. They were there. Unfortunately, they ran out of meat just before I got to the front of the line. I was
darn.
like Milton in Office Space waiting for cake. But it was, but it was a great event, and it wasn't insanely packed in. I think they didn't sell as many tickets as they would have liked to have sold. But that said, it was a great event, and it was spaced out enough that we were able to walk around and get
Actually
food and
get
get drink and get all our punches punched to get all
I
our
know
drinks.
a lot of my friends on social media I know a lot of people that went and really enjoyed it. So
It was a good event, so kudos to the zoo and kudos
Yeah.
to Our Detroit.
Nice. Well, while you guys were hanging out in the burbs,
yeah.
I actually made the trek downtown. I hadn't done this in a while. I like biking, and I've been traveling a fair amount this summer, so I haven't had a lot of opportunities to.
But the weather was perfect.
But the weather was
Yeah.
perfect, right? So I went down to DeQuindercut with my girlfriend, and which first of all is not as long as I remember it being. It's a pretty short.
It's 2 miles.
Yeah, it's not that long of a bike path, but we park, and we go to park at the Riverwalk Plaza.
Yeah,
there.
Rivard Plaza.
Yes, right at Rivard Plaza, and we pull in first of all with our bikes on the back of the car, and it's crowded there because it was a nice
Always,
day,
yeah.
and so we see a woman who walks across the parking lot with her kid and a baby and a stroller, and we're like, all right, she's obviously leaving. We'll wait for the parking space, and so we're waiting there for like 10 minutes.
Oh,
she's packing
silly.
up right
Yeah.
after.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm literally like, my car is facing her car. We're about 10 feet apart, right? Finally, she pulls out. And the second she pulls out, this 80-year-old woman just pulls right into the
Oh, no.
right? And I'm sitting there honking and,
guy.
I was I don't get road rage often. I got road rage in the parking lot. I was so mad.
Wait a minute. You lived in Massachusetts and Rhode Island, where
Yeah,
I'm from, and the road rage didn't rub off on you?
No, but I was so mad. And that she's like 150 years old, and she's using that as an excuse because she totally knows what she did, and she doesn't care. She says,
I'm sorry. I didn't see you there.
Hey.
My cataracts got in the way.
So anyway, we unloaded the... Right, sorry, Emily T. Gale.
Come on. Maybe, how about a little courtesy, like giving your seat up on the bus or something?
I was there for 10 minutes.
There's a sign that tells you have to do that. There's no such sign in the parking lot.
You guys are terrible.
So anyway, we unload the bikes, we go down the DeQuindercut, and we stop at the freight yard, which is these new shipping containers that are
it's
there,
awesome.
and they've got, they're serving drinks and beer and food, stuff
music.
like that. And I think I'd actually confuse Detroit Shipping Company with the freight yard because I know it's similar concepts. It's built out.
Too many trendy shipping containers turned
Different
serving
things.
stations.
So this is my first time there, and we get a beer, and I sit down at one of the tables, and I look over at the guy next to me, and it's a comedian I know.
Oh.
And he's got a notebook, so I figure he's like joke writing or something, for the day. And I go, "Oh, what are you doing?" And he goes, "We're doing stand-up comedy here."
Oh, nice.
And it starts in 20 minutes.
No
And so
kidding.
the next thing I know, like a dozen comics come out, and they do. And I know half of them, from doing stand-up comedy and
Yeah.
stuff like that. And
So
it
you
was
weren't
just,
even expecting.
Right. It was
Oh.
just, and let me tell you, it's a lot easier to watch comedy when you don't actually have to go up at some point. You can
heck
just sit
yeah.
back and enjoy it. But
And
it
you
was-
can drink.
Yeah, it was really cool to see, a show like that.
That's interesting that they've mixed up the programming too, because they have a lot of great live music out there. But I
Yeah.
didn't know they were doing comedies.
No, it was a lot of fun. So, all right, on the way, Bailey Sisoy Isgro has a new children's book. It's about Rosie the Riveter, and we'll tell you all about it.
Welcome to the D. Breathe.
Breathe. Funny stuff.
Jag, what's happening in the world of stand-up comedy?
Before we get to comedy, can I make a small request of you, Seth?
Well, sure. What's that?
Could you button up your shirt because the sweater you've got rocking under there is just really
That is
distracting.
quite
You
a
don't
carpet.
like the, yeah.
It's a lot of
I'm
carpet.
starting to
if
get some
you-
gray hairs here.
I know you're trying to prove your manliness because you're not into sports or cars, but really, if you could put that away, that'd be great.
All right, I'll button up.
All right, on to comedy. The show Detroiters that I know, Seth, you've talked about a lot, and we really want to be funny. Jim Harbaugh, the Michigan coach, had a little cameo on Detroiters last Thursday. So there was a scene in which there was a charity event where How Michigan Can You Get? They were doing foaling, or playing foaling, and Jim Harbaugh, who is known for his kind of outbursts on the field, completely flips out and loses his you-know-what because he's not good at foaling, which involves throwing a football, which is what he did professionally before he was a coach.
But it's not football.
No, so he was getting all mad about it as Sam and what is the other guy's name? Sam and Tim are trying to pitch a marketing campaign to Little Caesars. And then as they're pitching the campaign, Harbaugh has an errant throw and basically smacks him upside the head. And
I will say, in season 2, they have done a good job of getting some big local guest stars.
celebs, yeah.
They had Jumana on, and they've had others this season.
Yeah,
but,
that definitely.
did she leap onto the screen off a billboard, or did she?
She was there as like a big, like a big lawyer client, and they've had a couple of others. So it's, at least in the guest star department, they've stepped
Look,
up.
the show is great for Detroit. It's so Detroit. You've got Jim Harbaugh throwing footballs, Little Caesars. I mean, it's about as Detroit as you can get, which is awesome. But if you're not from Detroit, you're probably not going to get most of the jokes. And if you are from Detroit, you just wish the show was a little bit funnier. Speaking of funny, Nick Cannon's Wildin' Out Live coming to LCA on Saturday night. So if you like established, strong comedians, Nick Cannon bringing the show with some of the original comedians and some of the newer ones. He'll be here at the Slice.
I never watched Wild 'N Out, but I loved Nick Cannon when he was hosting America's Got Talent.
And I hated him watching America's Got Talent.
I will say this: he was not very good when he started, and he got better as the show went on, and he was actually really good and really funny towards the end of his rundown. Now it's Tyra Banks; she's not good at all.
All right, well, I think I walked away from Nick Cannon before I gave him enough of a chance.
Gotta give a guy a chance.
Really couple cool events going on over at Planet Ant this weekend, our friends over there in Hamtramck. So on Friday and Saturday this weekend and next weekend, it's an event called Box Fest Detroit, showcasing and creating opportunities for female-identifying directors. So they do their own shows at Planet Ant, and the winner of each competition gets to direct a show at Planet Ant. And they've also started a mentorship program that provides monetary support for aspiring directors to shadow other directors around town. Really cool event, benefiting some up-and-coming female directors or female-identifying directors, to be more PC about it. You can get more on their website, boxfestdetroit.com. And on a lighter note at Planet Ant, Friday night is an event called, and I'm going to try to say this with a straight face, Nipflix. It is a burlesque night at the movies this Friday night from 8 to 10.
That's a great name.
Yeah, that is a pretty.
That is my favorite pun in a long time.
Yes.
So at Nipflix, you will have burlesque stars along the likes of Roxy Delight, Vivacious Miss Audacious, and sorry, and
can't even keep it together.
And the
He's
last
losing
name
it.
is,
Yes.
as I giggle like a schoolgirl, Jax Nippleson.
Wow, that's a mouthful.
I'm sure it is. I'm not sure how big Jack's cups are, but I'm sure they are a mouthful.
But legit, I've seen Roxy Delight perform.
Have you?
Yeah, she was at the Dirty Show.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
She was amazing, like really mesmerizing, talented.
Entertaining?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
so if you want to get out for a fun, unusual night out, or maybe spice things up in your relationship, burlesque night, Nipflix, burlesque night at the movies, Friday night, 8 to 10.
So instead of Netflix and chill, it'd be Netflix and
Boink.
that's a
I gotta
little
think
too
about
direct.
that. Yeah, right.
Let's try and think about.
Yeah, we gotta think.
Let's come back to that one.
Yeah.
Other shows this weekend, Mark Ridley's Comedy Castle has Tom McCarthy.
Yeah, Tom is the guy that we actually spoke to a couple weeks ago. He was one of the people who put the Metro Late Night pilot together
Oh,
that
sure,
he did over
sure.
at Mark Ridley's. So that was him doing some behind-the-scenes work, but he's a very funny comedian as well, and he's headlining.
Nice.
Ann Arbor Comedy Showcase has Josh Wolf. That's a special engagement. He's been a regular on Chelsea lately. He's a New York Times best-selling author. Punchline Comedy Lounge in Southfield has Brian Hooks. He was in that movie Soul Plane, which I assume you guys have seen. I haven't.
You should just
move on.
That's safe.
And finally, gotta give props to our former co-host Mike Jeter. He is
Jeter!
headlining.
Woo!
Headlining the Holly Hotel with Sam Rager this weekend. Go see Mike Jeter if you have not seen him.
Nice.
Great friend of the show and hilarious.
I'm surprised he's doing that because he always says the Holly Hotel is haunted, and he's afraid of ghosts.
He is a little afraid.
He is a little spooked by ghosts.
We
So-
might need to go there and hold his hand.
Yeah, we might.
But
No,
not
good for
Erebus. Not Erebus, though.
Okay, on the way, there's some Metro Detroiters who have set a new U.S. record, and we'll tell you all about it.
The Deep Breathe.
History lesson.
All right, Becky Jag, we have our favorite historian back on the show with us. Of course, I'm talking about Bailey Sisoy Isgro. She runs Detroit History Club and the Detroit History Tours, and she has a brand new book out. It's called Rosie, a Detroit Her Story. And so we're going to find out all about that. Bailey, welcome back to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, we love having you on.
Always.
I really do, because I learned so much from you about this city.
I always take notes.
Yes. So, congratulations on the book. We're going to get into that in a moment, but there's something we got to
Thank
start
you.
with because there's breaking news as we're recording this today. The Queen of Soul, Aretha Franklin. We're hearing that she's very ill, and of course, this is a woman who's had a profound impact on this city. I mean, as a historian of this city, can you talk a little bit about Aretha Franklin's, her history with this town?
Absolutely. So Aretha Louise Franklin, wasn't born here in Michigan. She was actually born in Memphis, Tennessee. Her parents, Barbara and C.L. Franklin, her father was a preacher and a very, very successful one. He went by C.L. Franklin. I mean, this man marched with Dr. King. He was a big part of the civil rights movement. And he moved the entire family up to Detroit before Aretha Franklin turned 5. They came to Detroit and he became not only sort of a preacher in Detroit as the pastor of New Bethel Baptist Church, but he really became sort of an epicenter of the civil rights movement, of the Black Power movement, of sort of prospering African-American families in the city of Detroit. And his legacy in many ways is as profound as hers. So Aretha Franklin grows up singing in her father's church. And she grows up with that soul music and that sound we sort of think of her as still having today. She's often confused as a Motown artist, but Aretha Franklin was never with the Motown label. In Detroit, she is obviously one of the Detroit inductions into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. She's had over 100 songs reach the Billboard charts. She is in every way a legacy and sort of a proud daughter of the city.
And there's a street named after her, right? That happened what was that, like
Last
last year
or so,
right?
wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, within the last year or so, there's a street named after her. And what I always thought was really cool about that is there's a couple artists who all have streets named after them. We have Stevie Wonder Avenue.
Yeah.
We have Smokey Robinson Boulevard. And hers was the first female recording artist who had a street named after her in the city of Detroit.
That's awesome.
Well, obviously, the entire city of Detroit is thinking about her, and all of our thoughts and prayers are with her as she's going through this. Another thing I wanted to ask you about, Bailey, the Detroit Preservation Society is moving into Temple Bethel. We talk about you, Bailey, when you're not on the show.
We do.
Do your ears burn at all, Bailey? A little bit?
Everyone's
Yeah, my podcast ears tingle.
Yeah, there you go. Every once in a while, something comes up, and we're like, we don't know the story behind that.
But I bet Bailey would.
I bet Bailey would. And I mentioned the fact that the first time I took one of your Detroit history tours, that was a stop that you put on it. So can you tell us a little bit more about Temple Bethel? Because, my memory is only so good when I'm on these tours.
Absolutely. It's because I give you beer on the tours.
Yes, that is it.
That does influence it.
Kill a few brain cells.
So Temple Bethel, the building that Preservation Detroit has moved into, which is a wonderful organization, and it's really exciting. They found a new home and a partnership. They're actually moving into the second building of the Temple Bethel Shul. So for the synagogue, this is their second building. Their first building still stands. Today it's owned by Wayne State, and it's the Bonsall Theater. But that's the original Temple Bethel. I think it's 3424 Woodward. As the congregation outgrew that synagogue, a new one was built in 1922. And from 1922 to 1973, Temple Bethel was housed up Woodward, just on the border kind of the North End and Highland Park at 8801 Woodward Avenue. And this synagogue is absolutely incredible. Albert Kahn, this was his home shul. This was where he was worshiping. And as the architect, he was showing off. It's covered in frescoes and gold leaf. It has some really fascinating architectural wonders attached to the building. And the building is now home to a group called the Temple Bethel.
Yep. Bailey?
Oh, did I cut out?
Oh, yes.
Sorry.
Yep.
Now home to a group called...
Oh, Temple Bethel Transformation Community. And what they're working on is making this a space. They have a Christian parish there now. They have a homeless center for youth there now. And with the new wonderful news, they have Preservation Detroit moving into their building. They also have incubator space for small businesses. The Tricycle Collective has done work out of there before. And it's an absolutely huge facility. When it was built, it was the largest synagogue in the country. So you can see how there's definitely room for lots of cool organizations doing lots of really great stuff in the space.
Bailey, as someone of the Jewish faith who first moved here in 2011, it's been fascinating to me to understand what a large Jewish population is in this area of Southeast Michigan, and how it was really concentrated in Detroit up, till probably the early 70s, as you said, with the temple there, and now, of course, it's into West Bloomfield and Bloomfield Hills and that area, and expanding out into the suburbs. But it is interesting to me the history of sort of the Jewish migration in and around Detroit.
Isn't it amazing? I mean, when you think in 1850, two people came to Detroit. Their names were Sarah and Isaac Cozens. And when they came to Detroit, they were two of only 60 Jewish people in a city of 21,000. And the city had no synagogues. So Sarah urges her husband, we've got to establish a congregation. We've got to come up with something. So the Bethel Society actually started in September of 1850. And originally it was one rabbi, a man named Samuel Marcus, and he was from New York. They brought him to Detroit.
Why not?
And in the Jewish, like you said, the Jewish population in Detroit has always had a very proud, very ingrained part of the city's history. So to think from in 1850, 60 people, or I'm sorry, I should say 60 families, to today, a huge population here in Southeast Michigan with a really cool and interesting history.
That is true, Bailey. Like our tour company, Feet on the Street Tours, we do a special tour, usually for private groups, called Detroit with a Jewish Twist. And a lot of people going into it don't realize the depth of the history here. And it's really quite fascinating.
I agree. And I think it's that way for so many of our religions. The Muslim history in Detroit and really in Southeast Michigan, Dearborn, the Catholic history, the Jesuit history with our city's founding. It's a fun, intertwined part of our history that really makes you realize how much more similar we are than different.
Exactly. I think it bridges understanding when people start to learn that history.
Bailey, can I
Becky.
ask about a special feature that I was really impressed by when you took us to this temple, which is the air conditioning system?
Yeah, I wonder what their plans are for getting that back up and running. But it was an ice block air conditioner, the kind of system where you'd bring in large ice blocks, the kind of thing that would be delivered or that you'd have to pick up from the ice house. And cold air would be blown over the ice blocks, chilling them, and then it would rise up sort of and fall down onto the congregation, keeping them cool. It was way ahead of its time, and it was Albert Kahn innovating and trying new things in his kind of home, showing off.
Awesome. Well, let's talk about your new book. It's called Rosie, a Detroit Hearst Story. Tell us a little bit about it.
It is the true story of the hundreds of thousands of women who have come to be known as Rosie the Riveter. So Rosie the Riveter wasn't one woman named Rosie who riveted in one factory. Was there a woman named Rosie who riveted in a factory? Absolutely. But there wasn't one specific. And what Rosie the Riveter is based on a song. It grew into an archetype. It grew into an icon. And we, Nicole LaPointe and I, the illustrator, wanted to tell that true story, wanted to show that Rosie's just like we were talking about with religions in Detroit. Rosie came in every shape and size and color and age and religion, and they came together during the Lend-Lease years and then later during the active years of World War II to help make Detroit the arsenal of democracy. And it is a children's book. It's aimed at giving kids sort of an understanding of who these women were. But also it is engaging for adults and something that I would not be frustrated reading to my nieces and nephews. We wanted to write something smart, not write down to kids. At the back, I went history nuts, and there is a timeline of World War II on the home front and terms to know. And then through our partnership with Wayne State, who printed the book, our publisher, we were able to use real photos of Rosie the Riveter in the back. So the entire book is beautifully illustrated by Nicole, but at the back, they can see real photos of some of these women.
Oh, that sounds awesome.
Yeah, congratulations.
Thank you.
And I understand
Thank
you set up something special for our listeners to get a little deal on your book.
We do. It's available everywhere. You can get it anywhere books are, Amazon. But if you go to Wayne State Press and you type in the promo code TOUR, TOUR, you'll get a % off and free shipping right to the house.
How nice.
That's awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
That's why we have her back all the time.
Thank you so much for
Special
having
deals
me
for the
to talk about
listeners.
the book.
It's all about the listeners.
Well, I saw online, some of the illustrations. It was really, it's visually appealing, and what a great story, and nice job.
Yeah, congratulations. That's awesome.
Thank you. Oh my gosh, we've had so much fun with it. And Nicole is a powerhouse illustrator, and I just tried to keep up.
Well, Bailey Sisoy Isgro of Detroit History Tours and the Detroit History Club. Look, thanks so much. I really do love having you on the show. We learn a lot every single time you come on and tell us kind of the backstory of some of these things that we see day in and day out in Detroit. So really appreciate you stopping by.
Thank you so much for having me, and it's always a pleasure to talk to you guys.
The deep breathe. The deep breathe.
Sports Report.
Jag, what's happening with the sports?
Love this story. So the Detroit Police Athletic League now has record breakers. Their 4x100 relay team of 13 and 14-year-old girls, they broke the American record last week at the Junior Olympics.
That's awesome.
That's amazing.
They go to Track Life University, TLU. They're all going to be ninth graders together at Renaissance in September. And just, we've seen the Police Athletic League and the stuff they've done at the old Tiger Stadium site at Michigan and Trumbull. And to have these young women breaking an American record, national recognition is just so cool.
Good for them.
The Detroit Grand Prix, something we've talked about in recent weeks, they have had an agreement now, or they have an agreement now, rather, to extend their stay at Belle Isle by 3 more years. They're now going to get their load in and load out time down to 60 days, so that'll free up the island for, more recreation. And really, the big thing is we're getting more bang for the buck. Bailey talked about this when she was talking about how she would like to see it come off the island, about how, you can only dance with certain people. What was the analogy she used?
She said, if no one will dance with you.
Yeah, you dance with whoever will dance with you.
Yeah.
You're desperate is what she was trying to say.
And that's how Detroit
We're being
was.
sort of clumsy about it.
And that's when Detroit was when they got the Grand Prix for this bargain of $200,000 a year. The new deal, $450,000 a year.
Oh,
so
great.
that'll be some good money that goes toward Belle Isle for in the city for stuff.
So it's
like
basically half the time and double the money.
Yes.
Yeah.
I like the way that sounds. You are a good saleswoman.
That makes sense.
This next story has some layers to it, so follow me on this. So you guys have heard of the Madden football video games. It's very, very huge. So Big Sean, Detroit's own Big Sean, did sort of a theme song for this year's version of the Madden video game. In the theme song, he had a lyric about Colin Kaepernick, obviously the lightning rod of controversy and the center of this whole kneeling situation. Well, all of a sudden, that lyric was not there in the video game. People started noticing. There was a big uproar about it. And
so they were, in effect, censoring his song.
Exactly.
Did he know about it, or it just came out?
I think it just came out. All of a sudden, people were playing the game when they were hearing the song. Wait a minute, there's a lyric there that's missing.
Wow.
So after this big backlash against it, the official response from EA Sports, the company that makes the game, they said, well, we couldn't have Colin Kaepernick, the player, in the game because he's not a current player. He's not in the players' union. You can't use a player if they're not in the NFLPA players' union.
Okay.
They're like, so we knew we couldn't have the player in the game, so that's why we took out the lyric because we didn't think we could mention him in the game. Well, wait a minute. No, we realized that's not the case, and we can allow this lyric, so we're going to send out an update for the game, and your update will have the full completed song with the Colin Kaepernick lyric.
That smells fishy.
I mean, they're just not. It doesn't feel like anybody in football is dealing with this controversy very well.
Wow.
No, and I'm going to come out and say EA Sports has been kind of spineless about this because they took the lyric out because of the controversy around the kneeling and everything. Yeah. And then when they saw what a backlash it caused by censoring it, we'll just put it back in and give you some flimsy excuse. So
I am struggling with these companies that are trying to censor people, because there are times when I agree with it. When there are times when, Alex Jones of InfoWars is saying, this shooting didn't happen, and all of a sudden YouTube and Facebook and everybody are pulling them off.
The difference there is it's not just a political opinion. It's willfully spreading an actual lie, saying that Sandy Hook didn't happen. Right. And I'm fine taking that off any kind of public forum.
And that's what I feel like I need. I feel like I need an objective, bright line test, like a standard that I can grab onto and some way that I can divorce it from a political opinion and say, look, this is when it's okay and this is when it's not.
You'll never get there because it's all shades of gray.
Because people want to talk about freedom of speech, but freedom of speech only protects you from the government. Exactly. It doesn't protect a private company from doing what they want.
Right.
Yeah.
Right? So if Facebook wants to pull this or YouTube wants to pull that or EA Sports wants to change that, they can. Mm-hmm. And so I find it tough because there are times where I agree with it, and there are times that I disagree with it.
Right,
I'm trying to find some own consistency in my own.
But it's so hard because there's no one size fits all to any of
No.
this.
Right.
No.
Yesterday, Consumers Energy 400 at Michigan International Speedway. Kevin Harvick won the race. He beat out our local boy, Rochester Hills, Brad Keselowski, by less than 4 seconds. It's kind of on Brad's bucket list to win the race in his home state of Michigan, and he missed it by 4 seconds. So still looking for his first home state win. And then looking ahead to this weekend, Tigers are at Minnesota, and then next week they're home to face both Chicago teams. Cubs will be here, then the White Sox, and Lions have their second preseason game, first one at home. They host the Giants Friday night at 7 at Ford Field.
This is the D.
Concert calendar.
All right, Becky, we're at the height of concert season. Tell us about what's going on.
We are. Stick with me here. So we got shows this week at Shane Park include Jean-Luc Ponty, Earth, Wind & Fire with Sheila E., At the soundboard this week, you can catch Michael McDonald and Trombone Shorty.
He is awesome.
He is incredible.
Met him a couple times when I was living in New Orleans. Just
yeah.
super down-to-earth guy and insanely talented.
His shows are amazing. You can head to DTE this week, of course, for some outdoor shows. They got G-Eazy, the 105.1 The Bounce B-Day Bash for I love the 90s acts like Salt and Pepper, Young MC.
I'm having like flashbacks.
Oh my gosh, there's a whole crazy bill on there. Rascal Flatts will also be at DT this week. Meadowbrook has a show that includes Lucinda Williams, Steve Earle, and Dwight Yoakam. At Royal Music Theater, the shows include Toad the Wet Sprocket, as well as Beach House. St. Andrews Hall is hosting the Mighty Mighty Bosstones this week.
I love that band. Are you you're from Boston? Are you a Bosstones fan?
I am.
Have you ever been to the hometown throwdown that they do every year? The like 5 shows?
I've heard of it, yeah.
Oh,
but the impression that I get is that it's great.
Oh, I see what you did there. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So some festivals. The Motor City Muscle Music Festival is going on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. This is a free festival. Combines rock and roll and muscle cars.
Appropriate for Dream Cruise weekend.
Makes sense. It's 7 stages, 120 performances all throughout downtown. It's basically the same venues as the Jazz Festival.
Okay.
So Hart Plaza, Campus Martius.
So if you don't want to avoid the traffic in the suburbs, you can go downtown for the traffic for the concerts.
Right. Headliners for this show include the Dead Kennedys, Death, Sponge, Belinda Carlisle.
What?
I know. I was reading this like I triple checked my facts. The Reefer Men, Fishbone. So one of these things does not belong.
Just like the Sesame Street guy.
Yeah.
Heaven is a place on earth. Belinda Carlisle.
Right. I find it very strange.
So get hammered at the show and then let her close it out and have everybody drunkenly sing along to that song, which is one of the great bar drunken sing-along songs ever. Yeah.
And I don't know if she'll throw some go-go stuff in there. Who knows?
I guess, maybe.
So Saturday, August 18th, the Kindred Music and Cultural Festival is at Roosevelt Park. That's the park in front of the Michigan Central Depot there in Corktown. So it's basically a celebration of the ways Black people have made an influence globally. Music from acts like Payroll, Bev Love, a bunch of others. There's going to be food representative of various Black cuisines, a bunch of vendors, and more. That does have a ticket price, so get yours online. So a couple of music news notes. Mike Shinoda, right. Co-founder.
Start that over from a couple of music news notes.
Okay. Shinoda?
Yeah.
Shinoda, yeah.
So a couple of music news notes. Mike Shinoda, who's the co-founder of Linkin Park, he's set to do a solo tour. So he's including a stop at the Fillmore. That's going to be on November 6th. Tickets are on sale now for that.
The newly renovated Fillmore.
Exactly, yeah. So this is part of the Monster Energy Outbreak Tour. This is going to be Mike's first time out since Chester Bennington's suicide last year.
Yeah.
Right. Mike, and he's done solo stuff before. Or at least, he had a side project, Fort Minor, where he was doing hip-hop that had a pop hit a number of years ago.
And he just released a solo EP last month. It's called Post Traumatic.
Yeah, but it does raise the question, is there going to be a Linkin Park moving forward without Chester or not?
That just seems wrong to do it without him.
Well, because, there were Linkin Park songs that didn't have Mike rapping on it.
Yeah.
But there were never any Linkin Park songs that I know of that didn't have
Chester
on it. Right.
So that's kind of...
And that Fort Minor song you referenced, that song Where'd You Go with the girl singing the haunting lyrics. That was a huge
Big
song
hit,
in my world of top 40 at the time.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you guys know about this Club Heaven sound system.
No, can you explain that a little bit?
It's pretty cool. So it will be restored by the Detroit Sound Conservancy. So they launched a $15,000 Kickstarter campaign, and it's just wrapping up. I think there's one more day to go on it. It has exceeded that goal by at least $1,600.
Awesome.
So this Club Heaven, it was a legendary gay after-hours club here in the city in Detroit.
Okay.
It was instrumental. Like, you know how you might hear of what's the club in New York?
Studio 54.
Studio 54. Yes,
Sure.
thank you. You hear of that. Like, it really created a culture.
Yeah.
Well, this Club Heaven was really instrumental in giving rise to Detroit house and techno music.
Oh, wow.
It was really instrumental in this. So, and the sound system there, these just don't exist anymore. This is a really rare item that really you would only see in a museum at this point.
Mm-hmm.
But like so many things in Detroit, it was basically just the club was shut down and it was left abandoned, just left there to mold and rot. And
are they going to find a new home in the train station for it?
Well, perhaps. But anyway, they're restoring it so that it will work again.
Cool, okay.
And I saw pieces of this at Movement. And just the fact that these many people are sort of giving money to this is pretty cool testament to how we feel about our musical history here. So, and once this is restored, it'll be used again in the community, just to kind of spread the word and reach new audiences.
This is the D.
Detroit.
This is the D.
Brave.
All right, guys, that's a wrap. Let's call it another show.
I think so.
Thanks to our guest, Greg Rassel. He is the president of the Woodward Dream Cruise. Also, Bailey Sisoy Isgro of Detroit History Tours. She has a new book. Please go check it out. Support Bailey. She supports us. We love everything she does.
She's wonderful to us.
She even gave us our own promo code to save 20%.
Tour.
Tour.
T-O-U-R. That's all I have to do. We'll put a link in the show notes for this
On Wayne
episode.
State University Press. Yep.
The new book is called Rosie, a Detroit Her Story. It's a children's book with fantastic illustrations. And don't forget, this Thursday, we have Kwaku Osebonsu of Black Metro Eats. He's going to talk about Black Restaurant Week, which is coming up August 20th through the 26th.
And something we want to get into with him on Thursday is it's not just for black people. It's for everyone to check out some black-owned restaurants.
We can go.
Yes.
Yeah, it's black-owned restaurants.
Black-owned,
and there's some amazing restaurants, amazing food we want to ask him about.
Yeah, definitely.
The lineup looks really cool. So we'll talk to him about all that. Of course, this podcast has a mobile app. You can download it, whether you're on an iPhone or an Android phone. And you can head to our website to find links to everything that we talked about in this episode. Our website is thedebriefdetroit.com. While you're there, sign up for the email, and we will email you links to everything we talk about. If you're worried about FOMO, if you're worried about missing out on everything that's going on around town,
If you want to get the good stuff.
And you're not able to get to the name of the pop up the same
FOMOs
name in
itself.
Ferndale, yes.
Yeah.
absolutely. Plus, you can also listen to this podcast on your Amazon Echo. All you have to do is say, Alexa,
Enable the Debrief podcast.
I feel like I've said this before. You guys know this phrase?
Repeat after me.
Jag, what do you got going on this week?
If you want to just start a podcast, if you want, anybody can start a podcast really, but if you want to sound professional, you need somebody who's been on the radio for 15 years, who knows how to coach talent and edit the audio, which I will get it set up for you. So all you have to do is talk into a microphone. All the info's on my website, jagindetroit.com.
And you, Becky?
You know, if you're a regular listener, you know I've got food tours, I got murals tours, but I just want to point out, enjoythed.com. You can check out my website, but please know that we do private tours for all size groups. You could go by yourself, or you could bring 100 friends.
All right. You know, we keep having on our to-do list to come up with a catchy saying to say at the end of every podcast episode.
I think Becky's got it.
What is it? We want to test something out? We want to try something?
What is it?
Keep moving, Detroit.
Oh, keep moving, Detroit.
All right. Let's see if that works. One more time.
Keep moving, Detroit.
The D. Brave.
Your guide to Detroit's arts and entertainment scene.